welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Toby Travis, professional development trainer, and is author of the book called Trusted, the Bridge to School Improvement. Welcome to the show, Dr. Toby Travis.
Thank you, AJ. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's a big honor that you are on our show, and we'll be talking about how to become a trusted leader with you, with your insights, with all your learnings that one can get on. But first, to understand from you, Dr. Toby, is that there is already a lot of talk about leadership, especially in 2023, with all the layoffs happening and all that stuff. Here we'll be focusing on the school system as well as the corporate system. What exactly is trusted leadership? Who is a trusted leader? I thought all are good human beings, and leaders and CEOs and all those CXOs, they are all trusted people.
Well, we wouldn't be talking today if they were. It seems to be a universal problem that people do end up in leadership, but then are not trusted. And the element of trust, the reason it is so important and why we're talking about it, is what both research and experience has revealed. It is the critical issue to organizational success. As you mentioned, my sector is primarily working in education, but it is a true finding, and we see the principles borne out in industry. We see it in technology, everywhere. Without high levels of trusted leadership, you will not have success in your organization.
Right, Dr. Toby. Now, when we talk of this word called trust, normally we say, listen, I trust you with this. I trust you with money. I trust you with this. What do people trust leaders with? Is it about money? Is it something bigger than that? How do we understand what they actually steal from us if they are not trusted, what they actually deprive it? Because all the time it's not about money.
Well, it certainly can have financial elements to it. Trust is very complex. We use a 5-letter word to talk about really many, many things. This is why I use the analogy of a suspension bridge in the book, because I think it gives us a great visual picture of understanding the complexities of trust. So just like a suspension bridge has multiple components that must be in place and must be working together for us to entrust ourselves to either walk or drive across that bridge, so it is with leadership. So, and I'll give just 2 examples, AJ. Every trusted bridge has a solid foundation. Well, similar in leadership, every trusted leader has a solid foundation. Well, what does that look like? Well, in leadership, we're talking about beliefs and values. They are known, they're articulated, they're consistent. That is the foundation of trust, and it must be there. And if leaders are wishy-washy on their foundation, we're not going to trust them. A bridge has a substructure which connects everything in the bridge to the foundation. Well, in leadership, if we have a practice or a protocol or a procedure that does not support what we say we believe about our organization, about how we do life together, our values, we lose trust. Another example of this would be the deck of a bridge. A deck of a bridge seems very simple, right? It's a flat surface and we drive across it. Not so simple if you talk to engineers. There are so many complexities to ensuring that that bridge has a smooth surface. We've got clear lanes. We all know what our lane is. We know where we're going. Well, the analogies there to trusted leadership are multitudinous, right? It's trusted leaders are clear about direction. They're clear about mission. They're clear about lanes of operation, and there's benchmarks along the way. That is another element of trust, and there's many more. And all of these complexities need to be working together in order for trust to be present. Because someone can have beliefs and values. They can even be a clear communicator. But if they don't have, say, a competency in building organizational culture and relationships, No, they're not going to be trusted. They may say, yeah, they believe certain things and yeah, they got good vision, but I don't want to have a relationship with this person. No, they are not a trusted leader. So again, many complexities to trust. Again, we use a small word to talk about an awful lot of things.
Right, right. So let's now talk about the school system, and there you say that teachers do not leave schools; they leave school leaders. Earlier, we were talking about, most of the time I talk about leadership. I'm very much here, Dr. Travis. There is some power shifting and all, so no problem about that. It's back, so I'll be seen again. Okay. So in terms of leadership, that there was a problem in the industry, in the corporate setup, in the work culture. When there is a problem in school leadership, I find it's even bigger than that, because there you are talking about thousands and thousands of students,
Right.
young, impressionable minds. And if they don't get good teachers, you know, what sort of future are we creating for them, as well as the country, as well as for humanity? And as per you, if I understand, 70% of school improvement initiatives fail, as do process improvement initiatives in business. 70% is a huge number.
Yes.
Two, three things at the same time, Dr. Travis. But they are so interlinked. I wanted to understand this better for the audience and for a lot of educators globally. How exactly have we reached to this situation, and how do we actually retrace our steps from here? Over to you.
It's also true for entrepreneurs, AJ. So that stat holds true for new businesses. 70%, at least now this is Western data, this is US data, but 70% of new businesses also fail. Well, when you look at the research, whether we're talking education sector, corporate sector, even in the nonprofit sector, uh, when we see, okay, why is it that 70% of these initiatives are failing? It usually plays out to what we would label as execution. These initiatives were not executed well. But you still have to dig deeper to figure, okay, what is it that was not executed well? And every time it comes down to a failure of leadership. And specifically, that leaders were trusted to lead the initiative, to have the relationship in the school setting with teachers. And what we see, and you're exactly right, AJ, the consequences are huge because of our responsibility and connection to really the potential success of students. Other research that we've other research that we are aware of and have been for years is that the number one indicators to student success in the classroom is the teacher. So when we look at, well, what is it about that relationship that causes students to be more engaged, more self-motivated? Well, it's that they have a trusted relationship with a teacher. Now keep going. Well, what is it then that causes a teacher to be fully engaged in the classroom? The number one factor, a trusted relationship with their administrator or their leader. So there's a direct connection of trust from leadership to student outcomes. And if those things are not in place, it doesn't matter what your initiative is, whether it's math or literacy, pick your area of interest. It is not going to work to its greatest extent if the time has not been spent first to establish strong levels of leadership, of trust between leadership and the teachers, the employees, and then carry that on in relationship to students as well.
Right, right. Dr. Travis, before coming to exactly what can be done about trusted leadership, as they say, let's nip the problem in the bud. So if we look at problem from that point of view, then how do organizations, how do schools assess a leader's trust level even before they have entered into your system, so that you don't have that problem at all? You have better leadership, trusted leadership, possibly from the very beginning itself. What is the way they can do it? I'll come about to the to the trusted framework, Dr. Travis, but just to understand, is it possible that we can assess? There are so many ways where they talk about assessing blue collar workers, white collar people. What about leadership? Is there any way you can do that to stop the problem before it begins?
Well, you would hope you could stop it before it begins, AJ, but I think unfortunately the very first step is awareness that this is the issue and that we have to address it. Secondly, there has to be a willingness to look in the mirror, as they say. You have to be willing to let your employees speak into, as the leader, you have to be willing for employees to speak into your life and to assess the complexities of your leadership. We have to define it, so that's really, it's hard to measure something if we don't know what we're measuring. So this is why, again, I go back to the complexities of trust need to be understood. And again, what I share in the book is we use a framework where there are 6 components of trust, and then we have tools by which we can assess those different components. But it all begins with a mindset, first of all. And without the mindset of realizing, yes, this is the issue, and I've got to get this right, and I'm willing to do self-assessment and have others assess me so that I can use that data to improve my professional and personal skills, no headway is going to happen.
Okay, so when you mean when you talk about mindset, Dr. Travis, is that in the armed forces, when there is something called the psychometric test, if I am talking about it correctly. Have I called it correctly?
It's
Now,
similar.
yes, it is about talking about the psychology, about the thought process of a person. Uh, is there a way where something like this can be applied when you are getting leaders or people at a high responsible positions in your system?
Yes. In fact, we now know there are 21 specific skill sets and competencies that school leaders must demonstrate in order to result in student achievement levels and to develop trust in their relationship with their faculty and staff. So no, it's not just about a mindset. There are specific skill sets and competencies that can be assessed. And of course, the good news is, and they can be trained and they can be mastered, they can be developed. And again, this is why it's important for us to assess our leadership skills so that we know what areas to improve. And that is the good news is, no, there are tools to do this. We know what the skill sets are. We know what the competencies are, and we can identify those. And this is even a really good practice for a leadership team to do as they're getting ready to either fill a role or promote someone, is do an assessment of their team. Okay, where are we lacking in areas of trust that an individual could come in and help raise this up in our team? Because as we all know, leadership is not about an individual. It is all about the team. And so it's all about getting those team leaders to work well and complement each other, so that, like I mentioned, those 21 skill sets, no single administrator can have high proficiency in all 21. It's just not humanly possible. And again, this is why we need to develop teams around us that I identify my areas of weakness and I make sure I've got someone on my team who can shore that up, and vice versa.
Right, Dr. Toby. Now let's look at from your point of view. You are currently serving as the superintendent of the Village Christian Academy in North Carolina, in Fayetteville, if I have pronounced it correctly, or if not, you can correct me. You are also a guest speaker, a trainer, a consultant, and you go globally. You go everywhere, and you share your expertise with organizations, with schools. How have you implemented any mechanism in the school that you are, where you can make sure that there is trusted leadership? Because even though trusted leadership or leadership is about a team, at the end of the day the buck stops with somebody or someone. It has to, otherwise there will be no accountability, there will be no decision making. How have you worked that out?
So with the assistance of a company called School Right, schoolright.net, if your listeners and viewers want to check them out, they are a data company that helps schools with survey tools, research-based, normed, and with the assistance of their amazing team, we were able to come up and develop a 360 tool of leaders to, again, assess these 6 components of trust so that we can identify both individual strengths and weaknesses as well as leadership team strengths and weaknesses. And then using that data, we actually see and drive school improvement through the development of leaders. And what's amazing, AJ, and yes, I've seen it at my own schools multiple times, I've seen it in the schools that I consult with. If we get that right, it's like magic. It's like all kinds of other good things start happening. We start seeing student achievement levels go up. We see retention rates of faculty and staff go up. We see community involvement and donations come into the school to greater degrees. And it's all focused on driving those areas of improvement by ensuring we got highly trusted levels within the leadership. Fix that, and a whole lot of other good things just start happening. Oh, and let me
Right.
mention also because I'm sure you've got corporate listeners as well. It's also the key to innovation in industry. What we've learned is when you take time to ensure you've got high levels of trust in the leadership team and trust between owners, leaders, and employees, the levels of innovation go out of the roof. Everything gets far more productive and really exciting. But it's key that that is done first. So how do we do it? We assess. We use the data to create action plans, and I'm a big fan of short-term action plans. What can we accomplish and measure and move within the next 3 to 5 months? And then we do it again. We reassess, we action plan, and it's just continual short steps. I've often been asked, how do you restore trust? Well,
Right.
we do it the same
Right.
way we build trust, and it goes like this. You make a promise, you keep it. You make a promise, you keep it. You make a promise, you keep it. This is how we build trust. This is how you restore trust. And this is
But
why,
Dr. Travis, if you break a promise, how do you restore it?
yeah. Well, so if you break a great question, AJ, there's a whole chapter of that in the book. But if you break a promise,
And you are
and
sincere
you
about
own
it.
it,
You are.
you ask forgiveness, and you promise never to do it again, and you don't do it again, you can rebuild trust. I will share, though, unfortunately, what the research has shown us is if you break a promise, you promise not to do that again, and you break the same promise again, trust cannot be restored in 99.9% of cases. It's you just need to call it a day and maybe find another place to be. And so yeah, that is the sad reality of broken trust. As you break it twice in the same vein, it's almost impossible to rebuild the trust.
Okay, okay. And what does your trusted framework for school improvement focused on developing trust leaders? What is that framework about? So that people can
Yeah.
learn from that. Is it the same as your book, or is it just the full framework is in the book, Trusted the Bridge to School Improvement? Because a lot of these things will be applicable to leaders anywhere else in any sector, corporate or anywhere else.
Right. The principles that you read about in the book are universal, but the examples in the book are totally in the education sector. So yes, principles universal, but because my field is in education,
Right,
the
right.
application is there. And yes, what the book outlines is this framework for driving school improvement, and it's what I just mentioned. We assess the trust levels of the leaders. We then develop action plans to improve the levels of trust and competencies and skill sets related to that. And excuse me, and from that, we see using that framework that, again, achievement levels go up, community involvement goes up, retention goes up, financial benefits to private schools go up when we get that right. So it's really a framework of thinking about how to inform improvement of your organization is through the development of your leadership.
Right, right. Now let's look at, from the leader's point of view. Sometimes leaders may be good, but there is a problem, could be the problem on the other side. There might be some teachers who may
Yep.
not be the ideal teachers that we can think of.
Right.
And because they have the numbers, or for whatever reasons, somehow the leader is not able to, many people are not confrontationist. They just want to, make sure to do as best as possible, but it does not work all the time. And the blame will come on the leader. So, what is it that, in such a situation, what is it that organizations can do in terms of restructuring, in terms of, in schools, in corporates?
Mhm.
What is it that there is a good or better playing field for all parties involved here?
I'm a big fan of Jim Collins and his classic "Good to Great," and Mr. Collins uses an example or an illustration of getting everyone on the same bus. In other words, we're all driving and riding towards the same vision. And so, what you need to first is make sure that all of your employees share the organization's vision, mission, values, priorities. And then it's about getting everybody in the right seat on the bus, that they have the right role. But the reality is, AJ, some people need to get off the bus, and you've got to be willing to get them off the bus. So that's again, a kind of a framework. Specifically, what can be done is to disperse leadership as much as possible. In other words, get ownership down to and decisions about operations down to the closest level of where it's being lived out. One of the fallacies of a traditional school model has been something like you set up a principal and he's got 40, 50, 80 teachers reporting directly to the principal. Well, what we know is it doesn't work managerially. There's something called span of control theory, which has shown us that our effectiveness as managers or as people leaders diminishes if we're trying to manage or support more than 6 to 10 people. I remember when I was a high school principal, I had 46 direct reports. I was set up for failure. There's no way that I could humanly support that many individuals. So how do we get around that? Well, we need to develop mid-level managers, if you will. But in a school setting, that might be a department head. It might be grade level leaders. And we give them authority and power. But again, you got to make sure you got the right people on the bus, that they share mission, they share vision, they share values, they share priorities. When those things are in alignment and you disperse the leadership, lots of really good things start to happen.
Right. A lot of good things can happen, but with the present percentage of 70%, the problem, as the level is at 70% at the moment. How do we see the future? Can we bring it down? How do we do that? What are the immediate steps that can happen? Because this is now a lot of, after COVID, a lot of impact has happened on every sector, including the education sector. There is this big industry called ed tech, education technology, vis-a-vis, online, offline. So how do we see some better light from now here onwards?
Well, again, I'm going to repeat myself. The way we begin is to recognize that this is the issue. In the education world, AJ, I've seen it come and go over the decades, where there'll be a new emphasis on this strategy, or this element. Oh, we've got to have STEM programs in every school, or we've got to have IB or AP. And actually, what we find is it really doesn't matter if this issue of trusted leadership in relationship to the employees is not set as the first priority. It doesn't matter what program, what curriculum, it doesn't matter. You will not be successful if you don't take time to financially invest, to take the time to invest, and ensure that we are being intentional on assessing our trust levels and building high trust levels within our leadership and our organization. Then when we choose, no, we're going to be, an AP school, we're going to be an IB school, we're going to be an arts-based school. Great. You're going to find you're going to be a great school because you've taken care of the foundational work that must be in place. And until that's in place, it doesn't matter what you try to do, what your ambitions are to do, you are not going to see success.
Right. One last question.
To the level that you could.
Right. One last question on this particular part, Dr. Toby, is that Great Resignation has impacted all sectors. Has it impacted the schooling system? Has it impacted in terms of teachers? Because teaching is something a lot of people want to do after leaving any other sector or being dissatisfied in anything they do. Is it that teachers feel frustrated and they have been part of this Great Resignation to have better work-life balance and look at something else somewhere?
Oh yeah, no. And of course, it looks different in different pockets of the world, but certainly here in North America, we are just seeing, tremendous numbers of vacancies, especially in the public sector. In the public sector, just every school district is facing hundreds of vacancies, and it's complex. AJ, certainly the pandemic exacerbated it. But that problem has been growing for actually many years. We are graduating fewer and fewer students from education colleges. We are not providing competitive compensation and benefits. We are not providing opportunities for advancement and career growth like they would find in a corporate sector. So all of these elements coming together, are not attracting young men and women, let alone folks who are transitioning from other careers into the education world. Now, we are seeing some glimpses of hope, especially in the private sector. And we've seen tremendous growth in the last 2 years in the private sector, but they also have more freedom and ability to address those issues because they are not under the restraints of government restrictions. So, yes, there's hope. And I'm not saying the public sector can't turn it around. I believe they can, but it can take some hard decisions like we have seen in countries like Finland and Singapore, where no, they're doing phenomenal things, but they totally restructured how education was approached and how they staffed their schools.
Right, right. Things are improving. There is hope, but as we have discussed, there is so much to do, especially in the public sector education system in the US, and I guess it's the same in so many places in the world. Now, Dr. Travis, be that as it may, people who want to make changes in their system, in their lives, in terms of leadership, in school system or in corporate life, how do they engage with you if they want to learn from you? And secondly, how do they buy your book about Trusted, the Bridge to School Improvement?
Well, you can just Google Dr. Toby Travis, and you'll find me probably. LinkedIn is always a great place to connect. The book is available on Amazon, and so I would just go to Amazon, and it's available in print and Kindle version.
Can you hold that book, Dr. Travis? I want to show that on the full screen so that I want to also use it much better, because this is wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yes, indeed, because
And
that helps me even put a better type of thumbnail so that people know that this is the book that you have. Okay, so great. Now, my last question to you, Dr. Travis, is that people say that learning never ends. What is your learning you would like to share with others, and what is it that you want to learn from where you are at the moment? What do you want to learn in life? Is there anything to learn in life for you?
I think a skill set that I have been intentionally developing over the last umpteen years and hope to continue to get better and better is the skill set of listening and listening well. And that is a skill set that serves leaders tremendously. So in fact, I'm getting ready to go into another meeting here, and really a major element of what the meeting is about for me is I need to hear. I need to listen. I need to understand. I need to ask clarifying questions to make sure there's a depth of understanding, rather than listening to respond, but rather listening to understand. Really helps in decision making as a leader, and it's a skill set that all of us, I believe, can benefit from to greater and greater degrees.
Wonderful, wonderful. On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much, Dr. Travis, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, AJ.